Well, I'm a survivor of toxic exposure myself. And so I started a little law firm called Just Well Law to help other families. And now I get called into sick communities all around the country, and I help them unite and rise up and take on the bad guys. And I've done that now in Hawaii, representing the Red Hill victims against the United States Navy. We won that case. We had a trial in May, and now we're waiting on the judgment so that those people can get paid and move on with their lives. And then while that case was on hold, I got a call from an expert in East Palestine and invited me to come and meet Ashley and some of her comrades in arms. And I heard a familiar story. I heard about doctors not treating people. I heard about the EPA lying to people and telling them that it was safe when it wasn't. I heard about tests not being done properly and not testing for the right things, which drives me insane. And I got fired up. And when I went that December night, I had not a single client, but I was willing to represent any one of them, just any one of them. And I started talking to more people, and now I represent 744 of them. And we filed on Monday in an enormous case, first in Ohio, and we're seeking a jury trial. And then separately in DC, claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act against the EPA and the CDC, because the EPA and the CDC have to stop coming to communities and telling people that it's safe when it's not, and looking at sick people and telling them that they're not sick. There's a movement of families around the country, including Hannah and Ashley and many, many others, who are standing up and saying, no more. We're not going to do this anymore. We are not going to allow you to poison our families. I looked at my own testimony recently. I testified before a jury about the people who poisoned my family. And when I look back at what I wanted that jury to know is I wanted them to know that it happened, that it's real and it can happen to you. And I just had this, and when this happened to me, I had never heard, for me, it was toxic mold, but I had never heard of Stachybotrys. I have 2 Ivy League degrees. My husband has 3, and neither of us have even heard the words. And there is a reason for that. There is a massive cover-up in this country. There are people who are trying to influence the scientists. There are people who say that there are acceptable limits of whatever X is, right? And so you just talked about the gaslighting, but this is how it plays out. The federal lawyers at Red Hill stood up in front of a judge and said, Judge, there was never enough fuel in the water to make anybody sick. It was always within acceptable limits. And it didn't even affect half of the water line. Therefore, anybody who says that they were sick or believes them to be themselves to have been sick were psychosomatic. I mean, these are federal officers called my 7,000 clients who had rashes, vomiting, diarrhea, kids who had, welts on them, esophaguses that were burned, pets that were throwing up. All of them are psychosomatic. All of them. And of course, that's what they said about me in my own case. I was just a stressed out mom during COVID, right? In every case, they said the same thing. It's all within acceptable limits. And therefore, anyone who says they're sick, really is suffering from a lot of stress. Well, what caused the stress, dude? Right? It makes me so angry because I hear that same thing day in and day out, this BS about acceptable limits. And, no, I know that Ashley and people in East Palestine are sick because I hear the same symptoms, the brain fog, the short-term memory loss, the intense sweating in the middle of the night, right? My clients in Hawaii had migraines, and now the United States is finally issuing the paper that says, oh yeah, according to our own data, There were more migraines amongst Red Hill families, and there was more burning of the esophagus, right? Like, this is true. This is historical fact. And when you come in and you hire experts to say otherwise, you are denying a historical event. And it's deeply unsettling. And the EPA and the CDC in particular have to stop. Stop looking at sick people and telling them they're crazy.